Hello Nordicandies, and welcome to Season 4 of Nordicandia. It's Geeskoos, and this is my Week 1 update for my Necromancer. Necromancers are proving incredibly powerful, and so are the minions they command. You can see my team. I've got 4 skeletons leading the charge in the front. These are your meat shields, your front line. As long as they're alive, I'm usually alive, and when they die, I usually follow quickly. In the middle, you see 2 larger deaths. And then in the back, I have 4 demons. They're ranged spellcasters. So it's worth investigating each minion individually, and I'll show you how they scale their damage, their defenses, and what that might mean for you. Starting with the skeleton. So you can have up to 4 skeletons. All minions get a portion of your statistics. So the stronger you are, the stronger they are. Skeletons do very little damage. They only do 10% of your damage. And they have about half of your life. They also scale armor and evasion, crit strike chance, crit strike damage. They also scale dodge and block, which is not listed here on the tooltip. Each minion scales stats in a different way. When it comes to skeleton masteries, you can get more life by investing into the general mastery. I'm farming right now, so I'm using the idle mastery. This will automatically try to summon a skeleton if I'm ever below the cap. Most of the time, I play with the active mastery. This lets you have up to 8 skeletons maximum. You have to cast them yourself, is the trade-off. Moving on to the demons. Demons are really powerful ranged spellcasters because they scale critical strike chance and critical strike damage. In the early and mid game, it is relatively easy to scale up to 80+ % crit strike chance, which makes demons have 100% crit strike chance. And then you can stack a bunch of crit strike damage, and then you have a very powerful minion on your hand. I recommend going for the active mastery to get 4 maximum demons. Otherwise, you're only going to have 2 if you try to go for the idle mastery. This is my recommendation for the best second mastery to invest in is the demon mastery. And the first mastery that I would recommend that you invest in is death. When you invest into this point in the general mastery, you get a second death, and 2 deaths is always better than 1 death. Now, death's scalings are the best of all of the minions. You can see how the numbers are much higher. He also, with his native attack, is a auto attack splash damage character, so he hits more than 1 enemy at a time. And what really makes the minion shine to me is the Unholy Rage skill. This is an attack steroid for all of your minions. It increases their attack speed and then gives each enemy a special ability. Skeletons charge and taunt. Demons start casting the Necromancer skill Shadow Bolt, which is a direct damage attack that also has an AoE component at its final destination. And then finally, Death gains a culling execute effect on enemies that are 30% or below health, and that applies to bosses as well. Incredibly powerful. My favorite thing about Necromancers is the cull from death. Seeing hell go from 30 to nothing instantly is a good feeling. So that covers the minions in a nutshell. But do remember, they scale armor, evasion, force field, so that means you have options when it comes to gearing your character and how you want to add defensive layers to your minions. Because minion survivability is really the number one thing when you're setting up your army, and skeletons specifically, because they're the front line and they're also the squishiest. They already have received 1 rebalancing in the first week that have decreased their damage and their life. So solving the problem of how to keep them alive is one of the challenges. That's why I have this investment into the General Mastery. I have also decided to go with Bone Link, which is a skill that reduces the damage skeletons take specifically, more damage reduction in the first tier, and then you may choose the Idle Mastery, which will give any new skeleton Bone Link, or you can just cast it yourself once every 20 seconds. This will go a long way to help keeping your skeletons alive. That covers 5 of the 6 skills. That only leaves 1 skill left on the bar, and for me, I choose Demonic Presence. Demonic Presence creates an aura that follows you around, lasts 16 seconds, heals all of the minions that are inside of it, and puts a debuff onto the enemies. Pretty good package for a 1-button press. Lasts a long time, does have a high cooldown, but with some cooldown reduction investment, you could definitely have this up 100% of the time. If you didn't like this skill, you could go with Drain Life instead. Drain Life is a channeled ability that does direct damage to an enemy and heals you and your minions at the same time. If it kills something, it jumps to another enemy, so it's not wasted. Oh, I got Sorcerer Shoes. Dang it. I'm 1 away from finishing the set. I need a chest piece. Maybe next time. So that is what I consider to be your 2 good options for this last remaining slot. Shadow Bolt and Decay are both direct damage skills, but I think they need some additional gearing before they become viable choices to fill that last slot. All right, we've talked about skills, we've talked about our team a little bit. Let's talk about passive skills. Starting off with Pillaging. Great early game, mid game skill to use because you'll be short on magic finds, and this will get you more iron at the same time, which is a really important resource in the early, mid, and heck, even late game. Once you reach the late game, though, the magic find is less important, and you will replace this with likely Vile Touch. Vile Touch is a great more damage multiplier with poison specifically. So, unfortunately, I've yet to find a good poison damage essence, so once I do, I will move into Vile Touch. In the meantime, I'm using Wand Master, which increases damage when you use wands. And you may know that generally 2-handed weapons are preferred because they have more weapon damage available to them than their 1-handed friends, and Wand Master helps make up some of the difference. Reanimator, I don't recommend. The chance to reanimate the minion is too low to be consistent and useful. There are better things to take. Like Master Summoner, a good general purpose, increased life, increased damage for minions. I use minions. It's good. I'm using Gift of the Vampire to increase the life leech for minions. This is just another layer of how the minions are able to keep themselves alive, which I've already told you is one of the struggles that you'll face while playing this build. Bodyguard is a interesting hardcore option, or someone that just doesn't like to die, because if something hits you, it will get taunted by a minion. This can be really relevant in the times when you are charging in like this, and sometimes you'll hit a really big pack of mobs, and some of them will just swing around to the back and they'll just start killing you while your team is busy somewhere else. Alternatively, whenever there's geography like this, there's always the danger of you getting attacked from across the bridge by a ranged while your minions are up here dealing with the rest of the enemies. So that's what I've got to say about passives for now. And so we talked about actives. I'll show you my attributes. I'm currently running this kind of 2-to-1 int vite ratio. This changes depending on the need. If you need more damage, throw more into int. If you do enough damage and you need more life, throw more points into vite. There's no hard and fast rule. There's just what works for you and your build. Luckily, this is not the only way to build the Necromancer. We talked about how melee Necromancers are viable, as well as bow Necromancers. There are people using wands with physical essences, and So really the sky's the limit. People are discovering, and that's part of the fun of a new season and of a new class. Seeing what's possible and moving away from the tried and true setups of the past. So we talked about how minions have armor and evasion scaling, so there's room for investing into constitution and agility. There's room for potentially force field, even though the scaling for minions is very poor. We talked about how you could go melee, and you would need to invest in strength then. If you are a melee fizz or a bow build, you're going to need attack rating, so that will require dexterity investment. So getting all of these sorted just right is part of the trick of it. I may have mentioned that I'm farming right now, so I have chosen to use my Wand of Incineration and pair it with the unique Munin, which sends out a Raven, and you get a more magic find bonus for every enemy that the Raven sees. And this is a great way to get a little extra magic find where I'm still currently lacking on my gear. And you can see it fluctuate. So my base, I think, is around like, I don't know, 1.6 or something. And you can see it like as the crow flies out and he sees things, it's scaling up in real time up to a maximum of 2,000. And then as the enemies die, it falls back down to 1,000. So it's like a free, average it out at 200 or something magic find. And that's good. That works for me. I'm also choosing to use the unique chain of Aesir that I found. This was a player created item from season 3, and it rewards you with movement speed and item quantity bonus for every imbued piece of gear that you have. But my gear was all trash, and I was going to make new gear anyway, so I said, heck, let's go for it. Let's imbue it all to get the best advantage out of that neck. Someone's putting buffs up for the hardcores. We have a very active and thriving hardcore scene. If that interests you, you should come join. Highly recommend them. I play softcore because I don't like to die, and I'm very good at dying. So it would pain me to put all of that investment into one character and then have it die unexpectedly for my poor decision or poor playing. If I wasn't farming, I would be using 2 Wands of Incineration. And I learned that technique from Terranancer, the #1 Necromancer. And we do this because these wands have implicits on them. Critical strike chance and critical strike damage. We're trying to get our crit strike chance up high. By a combination of this wand plus these 2 rings, we can reach 80+ % crit chance. And I mentioned that the demons have 120% scaling, so they can reach 100% crit, and then they can take advantage of all of the crit strike damage that he has, which is probably like 600%, which makes his demons very strong. He's running 2-piece Marauder for bonus movement speed. He's running 2-piece Berserker for more bonus movement speed, so he likes to go fast. And 4-piece of Discoverer, which increases his item quantity, which is a great way to get more loot. Item quantity affects how much stuff actually drops from the monsters that you kill. Magic Find affects what rarity the things that do drop are. So better rarity means you're going to see more A4s, A5s, S's, set pieces. Let us look at another person on top here. If we look at what the hardcore people are doing. Angry Neko. He is doing fire damage on his wand. Garchu also doing fire. A lot easier to get fire because it's natively a fire weapon. Dr. Mario, however, is going poison. Probably because we talked about, oh, he's not running it. Interesting. But that Vile Master skill would work really well with poison. And one thing to note is when you do these one-handed wand and offhand setups, the all of the weapon damage for the minion comes from the main hand. So you put your strongest weapon into the main hand, and your offhand really becomes a stat stick. And in this case, he's getting total critical strike chance, which adds to your own personal critical strike chance, which then goes to the minions, total attack speed, which affects your attack speed overall, which then goes to the minions, and then he has critical strike damage, which is how he's scaling up that number so high to 600 plus for every crit that the demons do. Another way of saying that is that he doesn't care about doing any damage with this wand itself. Like it's a Necromancer, you swing with your first wand and do damage, and you swing with your second wand and do damage. And the second wand doesn't do very much damage at all, and that's besides the point. We are just holding it to make our demons more powerful. So those are the kinds of things that we are learning in Season 4 and about Necromancer play, and there are a lot of undiscovered options and possibilities. Here is Elon, who is using the Incinerator wand, but he is using physical essences as opposed to the fire and poison that we've seen so far. He's using this shield that says every time he blocks, he gains strength. So he is scaling his strength, which will in turn make the weapon damage higher and pass that higher weapon damage on to the minions. Remember, the minions, although it's not on the tooltip, also inherit block. And so they are getting 30% chance to block. So it's really interesting and considering things that we've never had to consider before. And maybe he's keeping his skeletons alive much more easily than I'm keeping my skeletons alive. Farming is one thing that necromancers are exceptionally good at. And you can farm a stage that's 1, 2, 3 below your max quite easily and still clear with really good times. Like 1 below, maybe 2 minutes. 2 below, 1 minute 30. If you go even more than that, you start to get to that 1 minute optimal clear time for a stage. And we used to have to use a purifier sword to get that kind of time. And we'd have to go much lower to a much lower world to be able to do that. The Necromancer is just doing it near where they already are farming at the top, which means that the gear that you get is going to be more relevant, and you have the potential to also gain a little experience at least compared to purifier farming. Next update to the game is coming within the week. It will feature set bonuses for the Necromancer, which are not in the game yet, and it will also feature new uniques across all the classes. So everybody is getting new toys, and it's going to be very exciting. I wish I knew what they were. I'm chomping at the bit. I can't make my mind up if I should go ahead and build a whole new set of stuff now, or wait until it comes and then make my decision then. I guess it will depend on whether I get that last piece of sorcerer set or not, but if I choose to go for it. So now is a great time to join. It's only 1 week into the season. Seasons last for 3 months, and come benefit from our knowledge. We will help you out. We'll help you out in the chat. We'll help you out in the Discord. We are eager to see new players come into the game. There are going to be different strategies available to players that make it to the mid and late game as they get the pieces of gear they need, and I'm looking forward to having such a low cooldown that I can cast this Shadow Bolt every 2 seconds, and then I can pair it with Sacrifice. I will sacrifice one of my minions, and that will make the next cast do 40% more. So I'll sacrifice, then I'll cast Shadow Bolt. Once I cast Shadow Bolt, I'll use this passive, which increases the damage of Shadow Bolt and gives me a buff that then increases the next Shadow Bolt as well. So I can go sacrifice Shadow Bolt, sacrifice Shadow Bolt, sacrifice Shadow Bolt, and then eventually build up a very big Shadow Bolt. I'm looking forward to trying that out. If you get that much CDR that you're casting Shadow Bolts every 2 seconds, that also means that your minions are going to be summonable in that same time frame as well, So it's no big thing that you have sacrificed one of them, because you can immediately replace them. And while you're doing all of this nonsense, potentially, your minions are still running around doing their maximum damage and have full uptime on the Unholy Rage. Another thing that I thought was really interesting someone shared with me is related to these swords, the Balmung and the Mimung. These are generally used by warriors that want to dual hand swords. You always hit, meaning you don't need to invest into dexterity, which is great. And that passes to your minions as well. And it also has the downside of your auto attacks deal no splash damage. However, that negative does not apply to your minions, and death does auto splash damage. So he will continue doing what he does, but he will always be able to hit. And then you can join the fray if you want and start hitting everything. Or you can just make them stat sticks. It's really up to you. I think this could be interesting because I didn't get a chance to play with these on my Season 1 Warrior the way that I wanted to. That could be really cool. And then I could build armor or evasion for my minions, and that would be a whole thing. Necromancer is going to let you build it and play it the way that you want, and that is really fun to me. So it is... The week 1 has come to an end of Nordicandia Season 4. I'm Geesegoose, and I hope that you have learned something or are as excited as I am about playing a Necromancer. So feel free to come join us if you are not playing already. We will gladly help you out along the way in chat or in Discord. And until the next time, goodbye for now.